Premier Sihle Zikalala, ministers of our national cabinet, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, Minister Ibrahim Patel, Minister Jackson Mthembu, and our deputy ministers, Deputy Minister Gina and Deputy Minister Kappa, and our MECs who are here. As the Premier said, the entire executive of KwaZulu-Natal is here today, and we are really delighted. The Mayor of Metro, Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda, and various councillors who represent our people at the local government level. The chairperson of Dube TradePort Corporation, Ms. Bridget Gasa, and the CEO of the Dube TradePort Corporation, Mr. Hamish Eskin. And of course, today we are here about the Mara company and Mara Phones, the CEO, Mr. Ashish Taka, distinguished and international and local guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It is a real joy and a pleasure to be here at Dube, at the facilities of the Mara Phones, to witness what I believe is a great moment in South Africa's drive to be a producer of advanced goods. Our visit to the Dube port provides valuable insight into how a special economic zone should work and does work in real life. And we are doing it in real time just to realize what an economic zone can produce, because it enables us to appreciate the immense transformative potential of these economic zones that we are establishing around our country. We are witnesses to a thriving collection of industries and businesses that are seizing a number of outstanding opportunities which this model of economic development actually is providing. In the State of the Nation address, I emphasized that special economic zones are important instruments and mediums for attracting foreign investment as well as domestic investment. They are also important in building targeted industrial capabilities and establishing new industrial hubs. If we look around the world, we'll find that a number of countries that have surged to higher levels of economic growth started off with establishing special economic zones. I can think of China. In 1978, when they established the Shenzhen Economic Zone, it was just like a very lazy village port. And today it is a metropolis. And we are fortunate that we've established a special economic zone here in an existing metro, where all the facilities are in place, where all the capabilities are in place, and it is here that the Mara company has found fertile ground to establish this factory. These zones are also one of the key strategic interventions that can drive economic development in our country, but particularly also in local areas. As one of the top investment opportunities in the country, with 3.2 billion rand in private investment and 12,000 job opportunities created in its first phase, the Dube TradePort is central to our efforts to attract investment in this province and indeed as throughout the country as well. We are now looking forward to the second phase of the Dube TradePort, which involves a large focus on electronics and a range of aeronautical services. Special economic zones, and in this regard, I've had Premier Zikalala traveling all the way to Johannesburg to come and see me and talk about this, continuously whispering in my ear about the need to have the second phase. He's quite a persuasive person. Never think that he is not persuasive and does not twist an arm. He's been twisting my arm for quite a long time, and we've all but now given in that there shall be a second phase right here so that we can do further development. And these special economic zones are important for our economic strategy, particularly if they optimize their strategic positioning, as this one in the seaport of Durban does. Studies reveal that seaport cities grow faster than inland cities due to their strategic location. Now, Durban is especially well positioned, but we actually add to that positioning with having this special economic zone. And this in itself is a very, very good foundation to catapult this part of our country to higher levels of growth. Because these economic zones, their development is fueled by port efficiency, handling of cargo, warehousing, storing, manufacturing, and other economic activities such as tourism as well. In the end, Durban is a melting pot of commerce, of tourism and industry. It is an important economic hub that holds great potential for our country. Our visit here is an opportunity to learn how our focused investment in infrastructure helps our economy to grow and expand beyond our shores. So special economic zones are part of a broader national effort to attract investment, grow the economy, and confront the unemployment crisis, and particularly unemployment amongst young people. Now, this effort includes the mobilization of more resources for infrastructure, improving the business environment, making it a lot easier for businesses to start their businesses, to sustain them, and to operate their businesses by removing regulatory and other obstacles to investments and working together with business on growth plans for specific industries. Now, for me, a highlight of my visit this morning is the launch of the Mara smartphones. Today, we are giving practical effect to our investment drive. Now, I met Ashish. Maybe we should never explain where we met because people will soon ask us too many questions. But once I met Ashish, I knew that I had met an African, and he came to me and said, "Mr. President, I'm an African, and I've come from the center of this great continent. And I grew up here, was born on this continent, and I want to make this continent great." And he says, "I have many ideas." Now, he's a fast talker. He talks very quickly, and if you don't listen very carefully, he can just trip you over with a lot of things that he says. But he's clear, he's articulate, he's a visionary, he knows exactly what he wants to achieve. And I said to myself, I think I've caught a big fish here. I immediately realized that I'm talking to a person who is serious about investing. And as you know, in early 2018, we announced our intention to mobilize 1.3 trillion rand in new investment over a 5-year period, which he immediately counted into $100 billion. He immediately did the calculation and he said, "Mr. President, that is $100 billion. I said, I'm talking to a clever man, and there he was. Now, in our inaugural conference in October last year, companies made 31 investment announcements with a total value of 300 billion rand to be invested in South Africa. And one such announcement is the one that we celebrate today. Because Ashish immediately said to me, Mr. President, having had a few meetings with me, he had been working on wanting to set up this factory here. And he took out a phone and he said, I'd like to make this in Africa and in South Africa. It took me aback a little bit because you know how we are socialized. We're socialized to believe that these very smart and slim, beautiful phones can only be made elsewhere in the world. And he said, we are going to make this phone here in South Africa. So at the investment conference, he was willing, prepared, and able to say, they are going to set up a factory here and they are going to invest right here. And today, Ashish, thank you very much. You were faithful to what you said. And he kept saying, well, we will do it maybe in 18 months. And I said, no, Ashish, I want it in 12 months. And he has delivered in less than 12 months an outstanding world-class facility. I promise you, you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere. You can go to Hong Kong, Beijing, Singapore. The facility that we've got here is just equal, if not better. And I'd like to thank Ashish for also having employed the 200 young people. And I took time talking to some of them. They are bright, they are skilled, and I spoke to one young lady, and she's done a course in electronics for 3 years, 4 years in fact, and I asked her, is this what you want to do? As she was putting together the cell phone, she says, this is my life. This is exactly where I want to be. So I thank him for employing all these young people, 200 of them. You said 67% are women? 67% are women. 94% of them were unemployed but skilled. And today we've made history. There aren't many type of firms like this, possibly in the world, where you've got 67% of the workers being women. Let's give Ashish a round of applause for that. I am truly glad and really, really proud. And Ashish, you've made my visit and my trip to KZN much more worthwhile. Because today we are seeing the fruits of the investment drive that we started last year. Throughout the year, there have been a number of projects completed and launched. Today, we celebrate this one. Last week, here in eThekwini, as Minister Patel was saying, Toyota launched a 450 million investment in additional capacity for its high-ACE plant in Prospecton. A number of projects are currently in implementation phase and will soon be launched. But the pride with this one is that, and I told Ashish that I'm taking him to the investment conference in November from the 5th to the 7th, and I'm going to put him up at the conference and say, here is an investor who came to our country and said, I am going to invest and create jobs, and I'm going to create a product which will be sold throughout the continent, and they have made true to what they promised. Because we want to encourage others. Ashish, in many ways, you've become a role model to other would-be investors in our country, that they should live up to what they promise. And I thank you that you have lived up to what you have promised. And I'm going to put you up at that conference. Now, we are on the move. You know, after that conference, sometimes South Africans can be very skeptical. And sometimes we become so negative about the good things that are unfolding in our own country. Some of the commentary that came out of that conference was, oh no, this is just talk. These investments are never really going to reach fruition. And there's just, some of them said, no, this is Ramaphosa's pipe dream and all that. And today we are reaping the fruits of exactly what was promised. But one other, Ashish, which I should tell you about, when I spoke about coming here, and one other person who I shall not name dismissed this effort. He said, they are just assembling, they're just knocking and putting things together. And that's how the negativity spreads around our country, where South Africans ourselves, we beat ourselves to the ground and we don't celebrate the good that we are doing. And today, there is clear proof that this is not just an assembly plant. This is a cell phone manufacturing plant. They start manufacturing the cell phone from get-go, from the beginning, almost from nothing. They put it all together, and I really found the cell phone so attractive. Maybe one day, when I get my salary at the end of the month, I'll be able to afford one. In 2018, and we've been on a drive of attracting investment. And I think that's what we need to focus on. In 2018, inward direct investment increased from only 28 billion rand into our country in 2017 to 70 billion rand in 2018. Phenomenal increase of investment. And this, what we are celebrating today, is part of that story. The World Economic Forum's Global Competitive Index indicates South Africa's overall ranking improved from 67 in 2018 to 60 out of 141 nations in 2019. That is something to be celebrated. Now, earlier this year, I announced our ambition, because we've got to be ambitious. We've also got to dream. We've also got to raise our gaze above the horizon and look for all the wonderful things that we want to see happening. Now, I announced our ambition to get our country to be within the top 50 cohort of countries that are featured in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index. Through our work to achieve that ranking, we want to get there. Although it's still at the beginning stages, we expect to see improvements over the next 3 years. We are working in partnership with business, with labor and civil society to unlock growth, to create jobs, and to build an inclusive economy. We're focusing on investment in infrastructure because that is a catalyst for economic development. And this morning we received a briefing of exactly what we want to do here, of our Aerotropolis Master Plan, which Premier Zikalala is speaking so boldly and so visionary about. The Dube TradePort is an impressive world-class facility that has the potential to be a key driver to South Africa's trade relations with the rest of the continent. And you already heard the minister talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is going to open enormous opportunities for companies located in South Africa. Now, I see the cell phones that we produce here being propagated throughout the continent, including those that are now being made by Mara in Rwanda, that the two key countries on our continent will propagate these cell phones throughout the continent using the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement. This continent will have an even more youthful population in future, a youthful population that wants to use these cell phones, these smartphones. And may I say, it's not only the youthful population. My grandmother, before she passed away, and she was very old, she once whispered to me when I visited her, she says, "My grandson, I'm now the only one in my group of friends who does not have a smartphone. Please get me a smartphone." I'm sorry I would not have been able to get her a Mara phone. But it's not only young people, it's also older people who want these smartphones. So there is going to be a huge market. As the minister said, Minister Patel said, 1.3 billion people on our continent will now be angling for these phones. We are witnessing a telecom mobile revolution on our continent. In Africa, 3G overtook 2G as 4G also gains traction. In South Africa, we are already piloting and rolling out 5G. This creates enormous opportunities in our country and on our continent. Now, I would like to congratulate once again Ashish Thacker for having the foresight and the faith in this country and deciding to locate his plant here in South Africa. So we are delighted about this great launch, because this is a launch that is going to instill a lot of confidence in other manufacturers that South Africa indeed is a place where they should all come and invest. We're delighted because Mara Phones is a proudly African venture, and it is producing a South African product, which we will have that little stamp that we call proudly South African. Now, the company's efforts represents a great advance in technological and electronic manufacturing sector, and we are delighted that you're increasing our technological capability by bringing your company here. But more importantly, it is also emboldening the skills, talent that we have. The young people who are working here, 200 of them, and they are going to increase in number as time goes on, are young people who are skilled, who have embraced technology, and who are our soldiers for the fourth industrial revolution. So today we celebrate, we are delighted, we have made sure that a great investment does indeed become a real investment on South African soil here in KZN, and we just want to see our province and our continent, our country and our continent continuing to grow. And thank you very much, Ashish. Thank you everyone who has played a role in making this investment be realized. And I was also particularly happy that Ashish brought his fiancée. Once I met him, I kept wondering, what's happening with this young man? Today he introduced me to his fiancée, and I would like to thank her for keeping him on the straight and narrow to focus on investments mainly and nothing else. Thank you.